Welcome, lover. I'm the Naughtie Scribe, businesswoman, and your host for the next hour. This live stream is dedicated to love, sex, acceptance, and understanding the lifestyle and ultimate sensuality. Trust me, lover, the knowledge I drop will be straight, no chaser. So sit back and prepare yourself. It's about to get naughty.
Welcome, lovers. Once again, you've tuned in to the Nyce and Naughtie Hour. I'm your hostess, the Naughtie Scribe. Now, for those of you who were watching earlier, you're going to say, well, wait a minute. Didn't Kay Lowry on her show talk about rejection and coping skills? She did, and I was joking with her when she left the studio. I'm like, damn, Lowry, were you in my dreams or something when I was thinking about tonight's topic? So do expect that we're going to hear from her later on in the show. Now, tonight's show is about rejection. Yeah, it hurts. Now what? We're going to talk about the fact that rejection hits everybody, young, old, fat, skinny, famous, poor, whatever. If you're breathing and you're doing something in your life or you have a life, you're going to face rejection. Trust me, a fluffy sister no. We're going to also talk about ways of coping and identifying the way you're reacting, whether it's healthy or not, to rejection. And yes, there is actually a game plan to deal with rejection afterwards. Okay, so with that, let's get into our first segment. What the fuck?
What the fuck? What?
Okay, so can I get that first pickup, seg pick A? Now, a famous psychologist, Guy Winch. I love this quote. So for those of you who are on Facebook Live and you can't see it, hey Gary, my cuz. I love this quote by psychologist Guy Winch, and it says, the greatest damage rejection causes is usually self-inflicted. Just when our self-esteem is hurting most, we go and damage it even further. Now, what does that mean in earnest? It means, for instance, imagine your self-esteem as a pit bull, loose in its own yard, got swag, barking at everybody, marking its territory. This is my house. Okay, that's your self-esteem when it's on uber confident. Then you get rejected and your self-esteem goes from this big ass 150-pound pit bull to this 10-pound newborn puppy damn near, and for good measure we kick it. That's what we do to our self-esteem. That's what we do to ourselves when we deal with rejection. Rejection is one of the few things that we experience in our life that makes us internally hurt ourselves just as much as the person who caused the pain to begin with. Now, if somebody came and slapped you, a total stranger, you knock them on their ass. But if somebody rejects you, you turn around and go, well, what did I do? Why aren't I worthy? What's wrong with me? It's one of the times that we doubt our own self-worth. Now, by definition, rejection means to spurn one's affection, one's ideas, or one's person, meaning their presence. Bottom line is, it really means when someone denies our worth. Because as human beings, we're full of ourselves, sometimes a little more than we should be. Rejection is when we get that wake-up call, sometimes justified, sometimes not justifiable, sometimes not with malice, sometimes with nothing but hatred and pettiness. But when we're rejected, that's a time in our life where we step back and we go, hey, wait a minute, what's wrong with me? Why aren't I worthy? Why don't you see me as good or as valuable or as loving as I am? Why don't you see me as the best writer in the world? Why don't you see me as the best cook in the world? Why don't you see me as the best singer in the world? Whatever it is that we put value on the most, when someone rejects that, when someone doesn't see it the way we see it, we tend to internalize and beat ourselves up over it. And it's not, again, just the everyday people. It's anybody breathing. Let's do our quick rundown. Let's go to our first pick. Okay, for those of you who are watching on listenvisionlive.com. Are we simulcasting on Facebook tonight? Okay, so it's just me. Okay, so lovers, if you're watching on Facebook Live, you're going to have to use your imagination. Right now, I have a pic of Taylor Swift and Calvin Harris. Okay, Calvin Harris, after his breakup with Taylor Swift, he went ballistic and had an emotional meltdown on Twitter. Okay, he just lost it. He even got to a point where he started telling everyone on Twitter who was following him that she was responsible for one of the best songs he ever wrote, thinking that maybe if he complimented her enough, she would validate him and take him back. Didn't work. So again, Taylor Swift, Calvin Harris, two very talented, famous people, rejection. Let's get our next couple. This one is very recent. Rob Kardashian, yes, that one, and Black China. Well, we had this show a while ago, lovers, when we talked about revenge porn, and this is exactly what I was talking about. After their breakup, he took an intimate video that they had taken and he posted that on Facebook, Twitter, and a few other places before he was forced by a judge to take it down. He put up revenge porn. She got a restraining order, and now they're in court trying to decide on joint custody of their child. Let's get our next couple. Kim Kardashian, yes, the sister of Rob. Kim Kardashian and Chris Humphries. Now, a lot of y'all seen Chris Humphries on that little commercial with the jetpack. It's funny as hell, but I digress. The issue is, when Chris was with Kim, they hooked up, got married, were only married for 72 days. Probation on your job is 90 days. These motherfuckers couldn't even make it that long. When they broke up, first thing he did was accuse her of cheating on him with Kanye West, who currently is now her husband. So again, famous couple, baller, somebody famous just for fucking being famous, rejection. Our next couple, which I thought was apropos, Kanye West and my favorite bitch, one of my favorite bitches in the world, Amber Rose. Okay, when they split up, he wrote a song called 30 Hours, and in it, he said it took 30 showers to get past her ass. Now, mind you, this was a woman he was bragging to everybody he was with. This was a woman who has been in so many videos. She's a gorgeous model. She's a famous in her own right, self-made woman. He couldn't wait to let people know that this is my woman. Then when they break up, she's a hoe, she's diseased, she's unclean, she's all these nasty things, because that's how he chose to deal with rejection. So again, lovers, remember that rejection can happen to anybody, and it does happen to anyone and everyone. And it happens a lot to people who put themselves out there. For instance, myself included. Y'all know I'm a writer. You know I'm a businesswoman. You also know, hey, I'm a talk show host. I'm a older sister. I'm a mother of two. I have a public job as well. But I don't hide my shit. I feel this way. If you don't tell it yourself, somebody else is going to tell it, and they're going to tell it in the worst way. So you might as well put it out there and deal with it. But that being said, I'll have 20 people that tell me they absolutely love my first book. They love my series of short stories. When is the next book coming out? Yes, I'm working on it. When is the next book coming out? And that feeds your ego. That validates me as a writer. Then I went to Google. True story. I had made my book free so that I could, drum up a little more interest in the next book. And someone wrote, "This book was so awful, I want my money back." And it was free. Now, first thing, it was the first time as a writer that I got that kind of just break you down to your heart criticism. And of course I took it internally. Those of you who know me knows that my passion, next to my family, literally second only to my family, is my writing. And I put my heart and soul into that first book, and I actually won a few contests with some of the short stories in it. So for someone to reject me that way made me stop for a hot second and go, well, damn, that hurt. And it literally did. But it was how I dealt with it afterwards that mattered. I sucked it in. I read what they wrote. And then I said, okay, this is one person out of so far 400. Yay. And so far, he's truly in the minority of one. Thank you much. I can't dwell on one person who genuinely just doesn't get my writing and didn't like it. I had to move on. But at the same token, I had to hear their criticism of my writing, because what if there was something in there that I could have changed? What if it was deserved? In this case, it wasn't. He was an asshole, but I digress. But that's the point, that when you put yourself out there, you are opening up yourself for rejection, whether it's in your love life, whether it's in your career, whether it's in your pursuit of fame and fortune, whether it's a relationship, whether it's finances. Whenever you put yourself out there, you open yourself up to rejection. And it doesn't matter whether you're a Kardashian or whether you're a Naughty scribe. Rejection is going to happen. Now with that, we're going to jump into our first break, and we'll be back in one. Welcome back, lovers. I'm the Naughty Scribe, and once again, you're joined the Nyce and Naughty Hour. Now, I want to welcome a few more people on board. Of course, you know my cousin Gary is on Facebook Live, and then we have my boo Brian Lumley. Yay! Hey, baby, and my girl Kat. Hey, Kat. So you know, I always shout out my hardcore fans that follow me on Facebook Live. Love you. You keep a fluffy sister going. And don't forget, tonight's topic is about rejection. So if there's something you want to put out there, type it up on Facebook Live. Let a sister know. And if I like what I see, we're going to talk about it, okay? And of course, those of you who have my number, feel free to call. Okay, so we talked about the fact that anybody, no matter what your station in life, can be rejected. And remember, rejection is that moment in our life where someone, justified sometimes or unjustified, tells us that we're not worthy. Okay, and there's my girl. I was waiting on it. Hey, Lowry, you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we got you loud and clear in the studio. Yay! Okay, so as some of you know, and you've commented on our election, our post-election show that Kay Lowry and I did, where we merged the two shows into a 2-hour block, is still one of the highest rated shows. And I'm like, wow, really? Because we had to do some talking after Trump, and we've been talking about it. So we are going to do a recap, because 6 months later, I think some people owe us an apology. I'm just saying. The comb-over-in-chief has proven us right. I'm just saying, okay?
Right. Exactly.
Larry, your show, when I came in, and you know, and I said this before you left the studio, I'm like, you know, damn, boo, you know, were we channeling each other or something? Can you just give us a quick recap of what your show was about, and how it blended into the nights?
Sure. Tonight, you know, I had an author on the show, Daryl Kador, and we were just talking about the topic surrounding his book about relationships, and, you know, just how to, you know, one of his books was called And This Too Shall Pass.
We got your picture up.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we got your picture up.
Oh, okay, awesome. And so, yeah, and so when we were talking about that book, we have to let people know that no matter what you're going through, like you just said, no matter if it's rejection from relationships or jobs or whether your credit application was denied. We have to realize that what's for us is for us.
Right.
And it may not feel like it at the time, but the one thing you don't want to do is accept something that's not meant for you, because then you have to start questioning, am I going to be happy anyway? And so
Right.
as far as relationships, as you said, it's happened to, all of us. But one thing I had to learn is if you maintain a strong sense of self,
Right.
then it's not going to bother you that much. You may say, oh, okay, that's unfortunate. I'm not someone you want to date. But then you have to think about it. Why would you want to be with someone who really doesn't want to be with you?
And I had this conversation with someone who told me don't be putting their business out there, but I had this conversation with family members. Hey, Tegan. Oh, my other boo, Tegan, is out there. Such a glam, lover, lover, lover. But yes, but this is exactly what I mean. A lot of times we spend too much energy chasing behind someone who isn't about us, when someone else who loves the ground we walk on, we don't pay them 2 cents. And I never did understand it. Now, rejection happens every day, hundreds of times a day. Some rejections are very tiny, some rejections are major. But we deal with rejection every day, and we reject people and things every
Exactly.
day. And the only time we seem to really pay attention to rejection is, of course, when it hurts
When it
us.
happens to us.
Absolutely.
And like you
Absolutely.
just said, we don't think about how many times we've rejected someone.
That's right.
Or, someone is not necessarily for us, and we talked about that as well. How you may have given someone your number, but then you don't answer the phone.
Right.
I mean, that's a way to reject someone.
And not only exactly, and not only that, for instance, like I talked about in last week's show when we were dealing about with emotional awareness and emotional identity, one of the things I brought up was someone who had approached me. Now, the flip side of that is I had another person who approached me, and case in point, I was with my mom. Y'all know I love my mom, my gray hair gang. Yes, we were going to casino, big surprise. But we're slot jockeys, we own it. But I'm with my mom. This guy approaches me. He approaches me in a way that I don't feel flattering or enticing. And I shoot him down in a polite way, but I do shoot him down. He wasn't for me. There was nothing about him that made me want to engage with him. After I get my gas, because I was at a gas station and I'm getting ready to leave, all I hear was him and his buddy tomorrow. Yeah, she's scared. Yeah, she was scared. She can't handle this. She can't handle this. Denial and mockery was his way of dealing with rejection. Now,
Right.
again, I wasn't interested. Now, flip side is I have been in situations where y'all know I'm a bold, fluffy sister. So I saw a guy I thought was attractive. We struck up a conversation. I gave him my card. We chatted for a little while longer. I thought he was going to call me. Guess what? I got one phone call. We had a nice conversation. After that, nothing. Haven't heard from him since. Okay. That was his way of rejecting a fluffy diva. His loss. But again, rejection happens to everybody. And why does it happen? It's because we put ourselves out there. If we shelter ourselves emotionally, physically, and society, if we shut ourselves in and we don't do anything but go to work, come home, lock ourselves in, go to work, come home, lock ourselves in, we're not living any life. And if we're not living any life, we don't take a chance on being rejected. But if you put yourself out there, again, whether it's your writing, whether it's your baking, yay, had to shout my sister out, Sassy Pops MD, great cakes on a stick. Love it. But anyway, if you put yourself out there, for every 10 people who love you, there's going to be one or two assholes who reject you. And yes, I call them assholes because if you've had her Sassy Pops, you'll know that you can't reject them. But the point is that you're going to have somebody who's going to shoot you down. You cannot revolve your life around what negativity someone else says. It may be justified. Maybe I found a hair in it. No, that didn't happen. Just saying. What if I found a hair in it? What if it was a flavor I didn't really like? Whether I had somebody else's product and they were better. What if I read someone else's book and it was better? Whatever. You have to understand that when you put yourself out there, you are opening up yourself for praise, but you're also opening yourself up for rejection. And it's how you deal with it that matters.
Yes, absolutely. And before I go, I just wanted to just mention that the more we work on ourselves and our confidence, it will hurt less. And it's not to say we're not disappointed, because like you said, I have met guys that I was interested in, and whether it's my outgoing personality or, I'm too business-minded or I'm too independent, those traits that I think are wonderful, someone else don't find it favorable. I knew someone recently that made a comment that, women have to be teachable. Well, at 40, I'm not saying that I can't learn anything, but at 40, there's not that much that you can really teach me about certain things, not like I'm 20.
Exactly, because you have some life experience under your belt.
Exactly. So, the comment was something like, you're not teachable. And I'm like, well, what do you want to teach me? And I still haven't got a clear response. Because I think sometimes people say stuff because it sounds good.
Yeah.
Not because it really makes sense. And so I just want people to know that, when someone rejects you, sometimes it's not even a reflection on you.
That's
it's a
right.
reflection of them.
That's right.
And just keep being positive and about that the person that you're meant to meet, or what, even if it's a job. That's another one that people tend to get upset about. When you apply for a job, it's one that you really want, and you don't get it. So we just have to keep pushing through life, keep being positive, and just make sure that we realize that the things that are for us will be for us. And trust me, I think it will be more favorable when you meet someone and it's a mutual attraction.
There you go.
Everything feels good, instead of you trying to force this person to love you.
Absolutely.
That's what you're not going to do. Don't force anyone, because I think a lot of times people who are rejected, they'll keep coming after you so they won't feel rejected anymore.
Right.
Like, I finally got her to accept me.
That conquest will make you validate me.
Exactly. Put that energy into someone who really wants to be with you, and trust me, you'll feel better in the long run. I know it's going to hurt for a while, because trust me, like you said, I've been there. A lot of celebrities have been there, and I'm just not willing to settle, and I don't want anyone to settle for me. So if I'm not what you want, then that's right. Pass me by and let me meet the one that I'm supposed to be with.
There you go.
So, but I'm going to go. But thank you for allowing me to call in to get my 2 cents on rejection, especially since there was a hot topic on the Kay Lowry Moore show tonight.
Well, y'all know I love my Lowry. I call her my sister in the stream, the live stream, and you always have an open invitation on Nyce and Naughtie Hour.
Okay, yeah, we have to have our Nyce and Naughtie conversation. And I know people saw us with the political show,
right?
But I think people should just confident to see me in my true element.
Oh, hey, don't you
on your show?
We can always do a double header again, honey. We're overdue for that anyway.
Okay, sounds great. And you have a great rest of your show, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, and you be careful on the road, babe.
Thank you.
Okay, good night. Okay, so as you know, that's my girl, Miss Kay Lowry Moore, and she has her show. Can we, do we have her plate? Can we get that real quick? So the Kay Lowry show comes on at 9 p.m. just before the Nyce and Naughtie Hour. And if you want a little something to watch before you get your naughtiness on, there she is, our Kay Lowry. Definitely give her show a tune in. Not only is she talented, she's a fellow writer, and she's in the adult industry too. So we're kind of like kindred sisters. But she's straight talker, real talk, straight no chaser. I love her dearly. So with that, hey Carrie, Miss Carrie Gross has joined us on Facebook Live. So with that, we're gonna jump into our next break, and we'll be back in one. lovers. You've once again tuned in to the Nyce and Naughtie Hour. I'm your host, it's the Naughtie Scribe. I want to give a nice shout out to Miss Danielle Martin and Miss Carrie Gross, who are joining us live on Facebook Live. And remember, you can always come to listenvisionlive.com to watch the show, see my nice little clips and all the little goodies that we put in. And of course, you can watch some past episodes on my channel on Nyce and Naughtie on YouTube. But of course, if you join us on Facebook Live, as long as my shit stays up, feel free to join us and comment. I'll shout you out. And if I see something I think is pertinent, we're going to talk about it. Okay? So with that, we're going to jump into our Getting It In segment. Now, getting it in tonight, we're going to talk about ways to deal with rejection. But I think, we just need to clarify something. Again, rejection is something you're going to face for no other reason than you put yourself out there. By definition, rejection is the spurning of one's affection, one's ideas, one's person, or their presence. But the mere fact that you're living your life, that you're taking chances, means that you're opening yourself up to praise, and you're also opening yourself up to rejection. You're going to have to deal with it in your life, in your career, in your finances, and in your relationships. And I think in our relationships, we tend to feel it a little more than in other parts of our life, because in our relationships, we make ourselves more vulnerable. We open ourselves up more. We're less guarded with certain people. So then when we feel rejection from us, we feel it a little harder, because we always assume that those closest to us basically approve of us completely unconditionally. They should love us unconditionally, but no one should ever accept you unconditionally, because that means that no matter what you do, you can never be wrong. And a true friend, a true sister, a true brother, someone that has your best interest at heart, will always tell you when you've crossed the line and when you need to be pulled back. They will not always accept what you do, but they will always accept and love unconditionally who you are. There is a difference with that. Now, with that, let's talk about one of the ways of dealing with rejection. It is to acknowledge your emotions. Now, what do we mean when we say acknowledge your emotions? Now, we talked about emotional types, so I'm not talking about the gusher who always wants you to know what they're feeling every moment of the hour, every hour of the day. No. But what we're talking about is, if someone rejects you in a way that hurts, it's okay to say that shit hurt. It's okay to say, ouch. It's okay to say, damn, I didn't appreciate that. You're not going to dwell on it, but you need to acknowledge that it hurt, that it embarrassed you. If, for instance, you applied for a job, I know I did, true story. I had been trying to get into the court system. In a position, I was working at a job that I liked, but I really, really tried for many years to get a government job in the court system. And you had to take a test. And every time I took the test, the first couple of times I took the test, I couldn't pass it because I was making dumb mistakes. Finally, I passed the damn test. Interviewed for a job. Everyone praised me, thought it really went well. Just knew I was going to be one of the people selected. They separated those that they wanted into one area, and those that they didn't, I found out because I ended up being in that group, into another room. When the representative came into the other room, they said, thank you, but we're going to go with the other group. I was devastated. I worked so hard to pass that test the third time. I knew I nailed that interview. Everyone there was joking with me and was so impressed with me and even said so. And one of the panelists even said they looked forward to working with me. So I knew I had nailed the interview. So then to be told later that they're going with the other group devastated me. I literally walked, and yes, it was walking distance at the time to my current job that I had at the time. I literally walked back in tears. I was that dejected. I was that hurt. I just couldn't understand. Again, remember, when we're rejected, the first thing we do is beat ourselves up. And I couldn't understand what did I not do? Did I not brush my teeth that morning? Did I not comb my hair? That's when I had hair. Did I not comb my hair the right way? Did I not say the right thing? Maybe I was laughing too much with them when they were joking with me. Maybe I didn't laugh at the right thing. Did I answer the right questions? All I kept doing was replaying it over and over in my head. And of course, every time I did it, I saw myself in the worst possible light. What I didn't do was the obvious. Okay, they didn't select me. Maybe, like Lowry said, it didn't have a damn thing to do with me. It is quite possible that the other people they picked were just better than me. It happens. That's what life is. You're going to be better than some people. Some people are going to be better than you. But because I was rejected, I internalized it. I personalized that. And I had to own my emotions. That owning my emotions didn't mean wallowing in it. Because y'all know a fluffy sister ain't about that. But I did have to get it out of my system. I did have to acknowledge I really tried hard for this job. I really, really, really wanted to work in the court system. I tried everything that I could do, and still I came up short, and that hurt. That really hurt. I put in more effort in that job than I've done a lot of jobs in my life because I really, really wanted it. Now, the flip side of it is I did still end up with a government job. Actually, that day, funny enough, when I got back to my office and I felt like crap, there was a message from another agency that I had applied for. They asked me to come in for an interview. Not only did I get that job, I've been there for 11 years now. And it's because of that job, it allowed me the freedom to do this and a few other things. So, I talk about backdoor blessings. Sometimes the things you think you want are not the things that you need. And it just doesn't happen for you. And you can't see it sometimes. But again, if I had allowed myself to feel incompetent and unemployable and unworthy, I would never have accepted the interview for the next job, and I wouldn't be where I am now. So again, you have to understand you are entitled to feel bad, embarrassed, or hurt when you are rejected. What you cannot do is wallow in it. Okay. The next thing is you're going to push pause and view rejection as evidence of life. And we kind of talked about that. Rejection is proof that you are putting yourself out there. Rejection is proof that you are taking chances in your life. If you're not taking any chances, if you're living a sheltered, safe, unassuming life, you're letting life happen to you. You have very few chances of being rejected, but you also have very few chances of getting anything done or pursuing any real pleasures, any goals, or any dreams in your life because you're not putting yourself out there. Just like on Lowry's show, she talked, her guest talked about a famous reporter here who started a radio station, and she literally tried 37 times to get a loan to open up a station in DC and got rejected 37 times. And every time she got rejected, someone told her what she did wrong. She fixed that, applied to the next person. They rejected her for something else. It took her 37 times, but by the time she hit that 38th time, there was nothing else to reject. She done corrected everything. They approved her. She's famous, and she kept it moving. But you have to understand that if she had stopped at 30, 35 or whatever, she wouldn't have become famous, and she would not have started her radio station. So again, when you are rejected, it is proof that you're putting yourself out there. It doesn't feel good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I want everybody to line up to be rejected. I wish there were no rejection in life whatsoever, but there is. Sometimes it's for a justifiable reason. Sometimes it's not. But if you don't put yourself out there, if you're not living your life, you'll never get rejected, and you also won't really be living life. The third thing is treat yourself with compassion. Now, we talked about the big pit bull in the yard and the puppy getting kicked. That's what we do to ourselves. Remember, I was beating myself up when I got rejected for this job that I really wanted in the court system. And that was the wrong thing to do. Because when you beat yourself up, you tend to beat up your own self-esteem. You tend to make yourself shrink smaller than the person who rejected you. The person who rejected me for the job didn't say the Naughty Scribe wasn't a good person. Hell, they didn't even say that I wasn't a good potential employee. They didn't say I didn't have good skills. My skills just were not as good as the people that they chose. But I told myself, that maybe I didn't do something right. I told myself that I hadn't stepped up enough. I told myself that I wasn't good enough. They didn't tell me that. I told myself that. So you have to step back and genuinely look at yourself with compassion, and remember that sometimes, even if rejection is for a valid reason, it is not who you are. You don't allow rejection to define you. It's a moment in time where somebody didn't appreciate your worth or someone didn't value you. It's a moment. Let that moment, feel that moment, and then let it go. Move on to what you need to do. Again, don't allow rejection to define you. It is only one moment that you have to deal with that's a little painful. If it's something you can fix, fix it. If it's something that you can't, deal with it, but be honest about it. But don't allow yourself to beat yourself up, to kill your own self-esteem because someone else didn't see your worth. At all times, you must acknowledge your own. Hey, Willie, how are you? Willie Holloway joined us on Facebook Live. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is refusing to let rejection define you, and I kind of already touched on it. Again, let's go back to my Google experience. And I didn't take that review down. Some people said I should have deleted it. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. Let other people decide for themselves. But remember, I had somebody on Google, got my book, put up the nastiest review I ever saw, told me, and anybody else who wanted to read it, that my book was so awful that they wanted their money back and the book was free. Okay? If I had allowed that one negative review to determine my value as a writer, I would never pick up a keyboard. I would never hit a keyboard again. I would never pick up a pen. I would never pick up a piece of paper. I would never jot down an idea. I would never have the joy that I have in all the short stories and the successes I've had since then, because I allowed one person who rejected my worth as a writer define whether or not I am a writer, whether or not I do have joy in writing. Again, you cannot let rejection define you. You either have to acknowledge it, you have to feel it because it hurt, but then you have to keep it moving. You have to cope with it in healthy ways, but you cannot under any circumstances let rejection decide the course of your life. Our last coping skill with rejection is to learn from it. Now remember, I did say to you that sometimes rejection is justified. Now, for instance, maybe you're interested in a particular person and they have shot you down time and time and time again. One of the common ways guys, unfortunately, tend to do it is they like to ridicule the person 2 seconds ago they would have given anything for a date with. There have been times I've told a guy in a nice way, thank you, but no. And as soon as I walk away, they call me a fat bitch, a hoe, too old, too young, you weren't worth it. I really wasn't interested in you anyway. But yet you spent the first 20 minutes of this conversation doing everything to get my phone number. I didn't comply with what you wanted. I rejected you as a possible mate, lover, or whatever. And your way of dealing with it was to become hostile. The flip side is just as true. Women will pursue somebody that we really, really care about. They've been honest with us and told us, I'm not really about you. We keep throwing ourselves at them. I really don't care for you. We keep throwing ourselves at them. I'm really not attracted to you. We do whatever we think we need to do to make ourselves more attractive, and we throw ourselves at them. Then we're shocked and surprised when we see them with another woman. He told you 100 times he wasn't feeling you, boo-boo. But instead of looking it in the face and saying, you know what? Okay, he's not feeling me. I'm disappointed, maybe a little hurt, but now I have to move on to somebody who may want me, who may worship the ground I walk on. Instead, What we do is we keep trying to fix ourselves until we think we're the image or the embodiment of what this person wants. When the whole time, nothing we can do is going to make this person want us. We might get them to use us, which is even worse, but they don't want us. And they've made that clear. Sometimes you got to hear rejection. Sometimes you got to learn from it. Learning from it is if you keep doing the same thing over and over and you keep getting rejected for the same thing over and over, you got to look at what you're doing. If you're chasing after the same type of person and you keep getting shot down, stop chasing that type of person. Broaden your horizons. I've had females tell me I would never date out of my race. I don't see how you can do it. Easy, because I like men. I don't like a color. So why would I deny myself pleasure and possible happiness because I'm stuck on a race? I reject that notion. But then you'll have women say, well, I can't find any good men. Maybe the good man that you need is the one you wouldn't think twice about because he's too light, too dark, or speaks a language with an accent that you're concerned about or have prejudices about. You have to open yourselves up. Same thing. If I had a nickel, not even a nickel, if I had a penny for every time some dude told me he doesn't do thick chicks, and then he's up in my face, this bitch could retire easily. Okay? Again, some of the rejection is not about you, it's about them and the image that they want to portray. But what you have to do is learn from it. You have to look at why you're being rejected, not internalize it, but why. If you got rejected for a job, and in my current position, I deal with a lot of recruitment. Hey, Jimmy Jam, my boy James, y'all know he's one of my boys, is joined us on Facebook Live. What if you get turned down for a job like I did that you really, really want? Either the job wasn't for you, either you really weren't qualified for that job, maybe you didn't study hard enough for the test for it. Maybe you could have interviewed a little better. But if the only thing you take out of it is what is wrong with you, you're never going to get past that rejection, because sometimes you can't improve upon yourself enough for the situation you want. But if it's things that you can learn from, okay, I didn't get this job. What do some of the smart people do? They'll call the recruiter up and say, you know what? I appreciate the fact that you gave me opportunity to interview for this position. I get this call all the time. I realize you selected someone else. Can you tell me what I could have done better at the interview that would have improved my chances? It doesn't mean that this person is we're going to unhire the person we hired and hire this person back if they give us what we want. That boat has sailed. What it does mean is they're willing to learn. They're willing to accept that sometimes rejection is for a valid reason. And if it's something that I can correct, I correct it. If it's something I can change, I change it. If it's neither of those, I deal with it, and I deal with it honestly. For instance, if they say I didn't type fast enough for the job, and no matter what I do, I can't get my speed up beyond 70, 75 words a minute. I know people who can type literally over 100 words a minute. That ain't me. I'm good if I bust out 70 to 75 words a minute with no errors. That being said, if I know that the criteria for a particular job is that you must type 80, 90 words a minute with no errors, and I know that my absolute best with no pressure whatsoever is 75, 79 words a minute, I can either go for it and hope for the best, or I can say, you know what, that's too much. I know my limitation. Let me look for something that requires a little less of a typing skill, but maybe more organizational. Let me play up my strengths more. So again, if you allow rejection to define you, if you allow rejection to direct your path, you will never have a life, because you are going to be rejected. No one is ever going to accept you 100% of the time, 100 times a day. It's just not going to happen. Even the people who love you unconditionally, there are parts of you they don't like. They may reject your whininess. They may reject your temper. They may reject your habits. They don't reject you. There are parts of you or traits of you that they reject. And some of us feel, well, if you love me, you love everything about me. That's a damn lie. I love you unconditionally. But there are things about you I don't have to like and I don't have to stand by. That's human nature. Now, with that, we're going to take one more break, and then we're going to talk about some action plans that we can do to literally help anybody deal with rejection. And we'll see you in one.
WLVS. Go ahead, y'all.
All right. To the fullest that I can.
How to grow and start your first company.
Studios, 2622 Georgia Avenue.
Dating, relationships.
We'll be chit-chatting away.
Shout out, I got my bell, y'all.
Yes!
You don't need money to do stuff in this country.
It's the same approach as the KRS-One with the charcoal.
Let's go! Daddy can't go!
This is a brand new day that we have never seen before.
Talking about your weekend, my weekend, and how the weekend went.
If those guys actually competed in it, we would be saying the total opposite. Like,
Having your money out in the open. That was mistake number one.
You have to have the courage to say, I'm going to do something that I want to do. We are here in the studio.
We're talking about fear and conquering fear.
If I can teach a 15-year-old how to do what I do, you can learn too.
Vision Studios, visionlive.com, yo. Here we go.
Welcome back, lovers. I'm the Naughty Scribe, your hostess, and once again, you've tuned into the Nyce and Naughty Hour. Now, tonight's show has been about rejection. Yeah, it hurts, but what now? Basically, what the fuck are you going to do about it? Are you going to wallow in it? Are you going to let it define you? Are you going to shut yourself down and not put yourself out there because putting yourself out there leaves you open to criticism and rejection? Or are you going to learn to deal with it? So tonight's show is about dealing with rejection. Now, I'm going to say something. My sister's going to be irked with me, but I'm going to say something because she throws this in my face a lot. Not everybody's as strong as you. Not everybody can go through what you can do. No, okay. I didn't come out of a box this way, people. Understand that. And my sister, for all her complaining about my intolerance of certain weaknesses and things, she's one of the few people who knows intimately the shit I went through to get to where I am. I went through physical abuse. I went through sexual abuse. I went through mental abuse. I went through being a single mother with no one, including my family, to support me. I went through damn near being on the street. I went through not knowing where our next meal was going to be, and I had two little ones depending on me. I went through almost being homeless. I went through a brief bout of wanting to commit suicide. So trust and believe, a fluffy bitch done gone through some shit, okay? But at every stage, there was a point where I had to look myself in the face and say, damn it, I'm not putting up with this anymore. I'm going to have to get over this. I'm going to have to move on. There are times where literally I just wanted to crawl in my bed with a pint of Haagen-Dazs, my remote control, and ignore the fucking world and watch anime, because y'all know I'm an anime nut. And that's all I wanted to do. I didn't want to hear anybody. I didn't want to know anybody. That includes my kids. And y'all know my baby's on my heart, even though they're 26 and 30 now. But that's where I was at a point in my life. But again, I didn't let that point in my life where I felt the most rejected define who I was or decide what my life was going to be. My babe Tegan is going through some stuff right now, making some serious changes about her life. It's hard. It's very hard when people won't accept you for who you truly are, who you know you are in your heart. But there are those who love you because of who you are and because you have the courage to go out there and say, fuck you. This is who I am. I'm not apologizing for it. If you can't get with it, then you need to be gone and let me invite somebody into that space you're occupying unnecessarily who deserves to be there. So to my boo Tegan, do your shit, boo-boo. Do your shit and fuck everybody else. You know exactly what I'm talking about. So with that said, we're going to get into our last segment, our flag on the play. Okay, lovers. So with that said, let's talk about some coping mechanisms, some action plans that anybody can put into practice to help you deal with rejection. Now, again, I'm not telling you that it ain't going to hurt. Yes, it's going to hurt. I'm not going to tell you ain't going to be embarrassed. It's going to be embarrassing. I'm not going to tell you that you won't be indignant about some shit. You're going to be indignant, okay? That's a human reaction to deal with rejection. When somebody, for whatever reason, for that moment of time, doesn't value us, doesn't see our worth in a particular way or overall, okay? But there are things that we can do to deal with it, because the last thing you want to do is to react in such a way that you're somebody's prison bitch for 10 to 20 years because you'd have knocked somebody out because they didn't like something about you or they wouldn't accept something about you, okay? That's the last thing to do. And not because of the prison time. In my opinion, it's because you let them win. That to me is worse than anything else. So one of the things that we can do is recognize our role. Be accountable for our contribution to our rejection. If you were rejected in approaching a potential partner, don't blame that partner and say they're scared or they weren't worthy of you or whatever because they rejected you. Take a step back and think, was my approach okay? Because I'm going to tell you something now, guys. Some of y'all get shot down not because you are a bad person. You get shot down because of the way you approach me. You turn me off right there. Maybe you might have been the love of my life, but because you approached me the wrong way, it wasn't happening. The next thing is reflect. Take a minute to rewind the situation. Look at it from all angles, not just your feelings. Maybe she was justified in rejecting you. Maybe you didn't fill out the application properly. There were a lot of things. Okay, I think I lost my people on Facebook Live. Sorry, lovers. Y'all know it happens sometimes. Next time I'll plug the damn thing up. The battery went out. But sometimes you have to look at why you were rejected and be honest about it. The next one, swallow your pride. Sometimes your pride gets in the way of seeing the truth. Be able to ask yourself, did I contribute to it? Could I have done something better? Or maybe this just wasn't for me, and keep it moving. The next one is improve upon it. Again, we talked about it. If you can change it, change it. If you can accept it, but own it no matter what. Remember, sometimes rejection is justified, sometimes it's not. To be caught up in your feelings, you're not going to be able to discern which way it is and how to deal with it properly. And lastly, and most importantly, move the fuck on. Don't wallow in it. Don't let it define you. Don't let it stop you from pursuing what you need to pursue. Some of the best people, some of the most famous people in the world, some of the greatest singers in the world, some of the most famous entrepreneurs in the world have been rejected so many times it ain't funny. And then when they finally make it, it's those motherfuckers that told them no 101 times thinking, damn, I should have gone with Steve Jobs. I should have gone with Bill Gates. Maybe one day somebody will be saying that about the Naughtie scribe. But wherever, rejection is not the end all be all. It's just a moment of pain. Sometimes we got to deal with it. Sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes it isn't. But most importantly, we need to keep our lives moving. Okay, so with that, lovers, it's about that time of night, that magic hour. Y'all be safe, love yourselves, love each other, and remember, life's nicer when it's naughty. Good night.